It is no secret that the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, has been under attack religiously over the past, I think, about 2 years now, as he's held office as implementing quotations woke policy. That is coming into light right now because it looks like that dramatic name change of a lot of these Army installations are now officially going to be changed from Confederacy memories of those people that were leading in that time to now other names that are being officially changed. And there's a memorandum that has recently come out that's now sparking some interest. It says Memorandum for Senior Pentagon Leadership, Defense Agency, and DoD Field Activity Directors. This was released on the 6th of October. It says the installations and facilities that our department operates are more than vital national security assets. They are also powerful public symbols of our military, and of course they are the places where our service members and their families work and live. The names of these installations and facilities should inspire all those who come or who call them home, fully reflect the history and the values of the United States, and commemorate the best of the republic that we are all sworn to protect. And that's true because you look at places where you talk about Fort Bragg, Fort Benning, these things that are like, you know which communities are immediately tied with these two bases without needing to say much more to them. And they do have historical relevance that name, I would say, is aligned with those communities. But I don't think that the history is necessarily attached to the name, if that makes sense. It's not until somebody actually does a Wikipedia search where they kind of find this stuff out. Says to uphold these values and respond to the will of the United States Congress and pursuant to Section 370 of the William M. Thornberry National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021, I established the Commission on the Naming of Items of the DoD that commemorate the Confederate States of America or any persons who served voluntarily with the Confederate States of America, the Naming Commission. After 18 months of work, including extensive consultations with experts, historians, and the communities rooted in the basis in question, the Naming Commission has completed its analysis and has provided me with the recommendations in its final report, including its planned pursuant of section whatever this is, to remove from all assets of the DoD the names, symbols, displays, monuments, and paraphernalia that honor or commemorate the Confederate States of America, commonly referred to as Confederacy, or any person who served voluntarily with the Confederate States of America. And this aligns with what we saw only about a year and a half ago, where you saw all these statues being taken down over and over again as people were saying that this doesn't reflect the current day of American society. And that's kind of what prompted this. I concur with the naming of the Commission's recommendations, including the renaming plan. In the words of Admiral Michelle M. Howard, the Naming Commission's chair, the Commission's goal was to inspire service members and military communities with names of values that have meaning. The Department's implementation of the Commission's recommendation will do just that, and will give proud new names that are rooted in their local communities and that honor American heroes whose valor, courage, and patriotism exemplify the very best of the United States military. Michelle Howard, if you guys are unaware of who this is, she was the first African-American admiral that... I'll put it up here somewhere, but it's kind of interesting to see that she's still having an active participating role in this, and this is where she's at now as far as her post-military career. I fully support the efforts and recommendations of the Naming Commission on this important matter, and I am committed to implementing all of the Commission's recommendations as soon as possible, subject to the expiration of the 90-day waiting period mandated by this section no later than 1 January 2024. To that end, I direct the relevant DoD and Office of the Secretary of Defense component heads to begin planning for implementation of the Commission's recommendations immediately. Although the Department will not implement the renaming plan prior to the expiration of the 90-day waiting period on December 18, 2022, several of the Naming Commission's recommendations, including those related to changes of the Department's memorialization and naming process, are not subject to the congressional waiting period. I therefore direct the relevant DoD and OSD component heads to begin to implement those recommendations immediately. The Under Secretary of Defense for Acquisition Sustainment will provide additional guidance for the implementation of those recommendations. So we are seeing some pretty drastic changes that are coming forward, and I do think that there are some people that are laying on both sides of this fence, as some of the names have now officially come out. Now, a lot of these bases you may have heard before, and we're going to go down some of them right now. Per Task and Purpose, they're reporting that these are 9 posts that they're looking to change the names for. This includes Fort Benning, Fort Gordon, Fort Bragg, Fort Texas, or Fort Rucker, Fort Polk, and Fort AP Hill, and Fort Lee in Virginia. For example, we see here Fort Bragg over in North Carolina to be renamed Fort Liberty among Army bases losing Confederate names. Here we have Fort Hood to be renamed for this general, which is Richard Cavazos, 4-star Hispanic general. And what they're saying here is that if you look at a lot of these people that are being named after, for example, Fort Bragg was a general that was very harsh on his soldiers and making them go into battles that didn't actually help them win any part of the war and actually was part of them losing that. It says Cavazos is a Mexican-American from Kingsville, Texas, who commanded 3 Corps headquarters at Fort Hood, among other assignments. The renaming, which could take months to complete, falls under this Authorization Act. They say he overcame racism and other obstacles through his 33 years of service and eventually led the U.S. Army's Forces Command, making him one of the highest ranked Army officials of his time. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus said in a letter that recommended the late general's name replace Hood's. Throughout our nation's history, Hispanic and Latino service members have served with valor and distinction despite at times facing discrimination at home and abroad, he said in a statement at the time. They say that the welcoming community that our service members and military families are so proud to call their home. What I'm kind of baffled by is that it took this level of degree to have any consideration or thought in regards to all of that's going on with this compared to, for example, a injustice that was more direct, more recent, that I would say was not very considered, and that was Vanessa Guillen over at Fort Hood. She got a base gate. That's what she got, the Vanessa Guillen gate. And then there was the insensitivity of what was listed below that, which was quotations, the great place. So it's like, I love how there's so much attention on this, where I'm like, where was that same attentiveness or that same drive for something like that? Where I'm like, that we're seeing these these, issues with leadership that are happening in present day that are being addressed, not at all. But we're seeing the injustices of how many years ago, where I'm not saying it's not as important, but I just want to say that, like, we still can't forget what's happening in current day either. I'm really trying to wrap my head around this because I look at situations such as how we changed Aunt Jemima, how we changed Uncle Ben, how we changed the Washington Redskins to the Washington Commanders. I look at these situations and I'm not just going to be like, what did we accomplish? But I also have to say, like, what now? Now that it's changed, what now? And lastly, I'm going to throw my little 2 cents in as somebody that's worked at a place that's had several different name changes. And that is, for example, a hospital I worked at was called Balboa, right? Everybody knew about it in San Diego, and people to this day still call it that. Now, it's been called Naval Medical Center San Diego. It's been called Navy Medical Readiness Training Center, I believe it is right now, San Diego. It's been called, I think it was Bob Wilson something or other, right? Like, it's had several names, but if you say Balboa, everyone knows what that is. And so, as much as I think there is going to be a formality on paper for some of these places and what they're called, I don't think it's actually going to make this change or call to action happen any sooner, because I do believe that typically policy will then be followed by the change in culture, which I don't think that there was really that many people within the military community that were too outraged by this, because no one said out there, man, I can't wait for this base to change its name. I just hate driving by that place. And it's like, I don't know who this is coming from. It feels like an invisible voice that's out there, but I just don't know anyone tangibly that I know that deals with these injustices that they're so concerned with. So if you feel this way, please let me know. That way I don't feel like I'm sitting in an echo chamber, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree with the name changes as we've seen kind of this new change come up over the past 2 years? As always, if you guys like this video or have other topics you want me to discuss, hit me up over on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.